For 25 years, the truth sat inside a freezer, waiting for someone to finally listen. For more than 2 decades, that evidence waited. Silent, cold, forgotten. This is not a story about science. It's a story about silence, and how the truth, no matter how frozen or ignored, eventually melts through the lies that buried it. Before the headlines, before the handcuffs, Michael Morton was a man like any other. A grocery store manager in Williamson County, Texas. Married to Christine, a woman full of warmth and laughter. They lived in a quiet neighborhood in the mid-1980s, raising their young son Eric. Life was predictable, steady, ordinary. He worked long shifts, came home to family dinners, and weekends were spent outdoors or around the television. By all accounts, the Mortons were the kind of family you'd wave to across the yard. But ordinary lives are fragile. All it takes is one morning, one decision, for everything to collapse. August 13, 1986. Michael leaves for work before dawn. Christine stays home with their 3-year-old son. It's her birthday. He leaves a note for her on the dresser, a simple message of love with plans for dinner later that night. By mid-afternoon, that home, the one filled with warmth and laughter, becomes a crime scene. Christine is found dead in the bedroom. Their son is discovered unharmed but confused. And within hours, the small-town piece of Williamson County shatters. Police arrive, scanning the scene. But instead of questions, they begin to form conclusions. There's no sign of forced entry, no clear motive from outside. And so, their attention turns inward, toward the husband. Michael Morton returns home to flashing lights, crime tape, and suspicion. He's taken in for questioning before he can even process what's happened. Detectives begin to shape a theory. A domestic argument turned deadly. The narrative takes hold fast. One that fits their assumptions more neatly than the messy unknown. But beneath the surface, the case already has cracks. A neighbor reports seeing a strange man parked behind the house days earlier. Another witness mentions a green van in the neighborhood that morning. And a bloody bandana is discovered in a nearby field, wrapped around what looks like hair and tissue. Evidence that doesn't fit the police theory. Yet it's set aside. The detectives focus on Michael. His calm demeanor, a symptom of shock, is interpreted as guilt. His consistent denials are seen as manipulation. The note he left for his wife that morning, a loving birthday message, is twisted into something darker. The prosecution later frames it as evidence of tension. Science takes a backseat to certainty. In 1987, Michael Morton stands in court accused of murdering his wife. The prosecution's case relies almost entirely on circumstantial evidence and the testimony of investigators convinced of his guilt. There's no weapon, no motive beyond assumption, and no forensic proof linking him to the crime. But the jury doesn't see what's missing. They only see what they're shown. What they don't see are the hidden police reports, documents that could have changed everything. Reports describing a suspicious man seen near the Morton home. A transcript of a conversation where young Eric, the couple's son, said, "Daddy wasn't there, a monster hurt Mommy." These details never make it to the defense. They're buried, sealed, and forgotten, just like the bandana. When the verdict is read, Michael's face remains still. Life sentence. No possibility of parole. The courtroom murmurs. For the prosecutors, it's a win. For Christine's family, closure. For Michael, the beginning of a 25-year nightmare. Prison doesn't just take freedom, it rewrites time. Days blur into months, months into years, and the years they crawl. Michael writes letters, to lawyers, journalists, anyone who might listen. Always the same message, I didn't do it. But innocence is a weak defense in a system that's already moved on. Appeals are denied. New evidence requests ignored. His son grows up believing he's a killer. In the outside world, science evolves. DNA testing begins transforming criminal cases, exposing errors once thought impossible. But inside the cell, Michael has no access, no means, no voice. He's just another forgotten file number. And somewhere, locked away in a small county storage room, sits that bandana, the one with both the victim's blood and the unknown DNA. Waiting. The early 2000s. For most of America, it's a new millennium of technology and progress. For Michael Morton, it's still 1986. Then, a letter arrives from a group called the Innocence Project. They've reviewed his case. They believe there's a chance, a small one, that science can prove what he said all along. They file motion after motion requesting DNA testing on the evidence, especially that bandana. But the local prosecutor's office refuses. The same office that once buried evidence now argues that new testing would be unnecessary. It's a wall of silence built on ego and reputation. If the DNA proves Michael innocent, it means they were wrong, and the system doesn't like being wrong. Imagine a small freezer, somewhere in a courthouse basement. Inside it, a plastic bag. Inside that bag, the bandana. It's been there for over 2 decades, untouched, forgotten, waiting. The truth frozen in time. That evidence holds the key to everything. To Christine's justice. To Michael's freedom. To the truth itself. But no one has listened. Not yet. For 25 years, the truth sat inside a freezer, waiting for someone to finally listen. But when it finally thawed, it didn't just free a man. It exposed a lie that stretched across decades, a lie built not by science but by silence. For most people, 25 years is a lifetime. For Michael Morton, it was a sentence, carved by the silence of a system that refused to listen. Inside the concrete gray of the Michael unit in Texas, days melted into each other. The sun rose and fell, but nothing changed. Except one thing. Michael never stopped believing the truth would come out. He had lost everything, his wife, his son, his freedom. But he still had one thing left. Hope. And that hope would find an ally. Someone willing to look where the system refused to. In the late 1990s, a new wave of defense lawyers began challenging old convictions using an emerging tool, DNA testing. This movement was led by the Innocence Project, founded by Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld. Their mission was simple but revolutionary: use science to correct human error. Michael's case landed on their radar in 2001. His new attorney, John Raley, teamed up with the Innocence Project after reading about Michael's insistence that critical evidence, a bandana found near the crime scene, had never been properly tested. That bandana had dried blood stains. It had been bagged, sealed, and forgotten in evidence storage for years. That single piece of cloth would become the thread that unraveled a 25-year lie. But the path to truth was blocked. The local district attorney's office, the same one that had prosecuted Michael, refused to release the evidence for DNA testing. It took years of legal petitions, hearings, and rejections. Each time, Michael's team was told the same thing: the case is closed. But Michael didn't give up. Neither did his lawyers. Every letter he wrote from prison ended the same way: I am innocent. Please help me prove it. It's one thing to be accused of a crime you didn't commit. It's another to be silenced when science could set you free. Finally, after nearly 6 years of court battles, a judge granted permission in 2011. The evidence could be tested. Inside a state crime lab, technicians opened a box that hadn't seen daylight in over 2 decades. They cut a small piece of fabric from the blue bandana and placed it under the machine. Weeks passed. When the results came back, they didn't just clear Michael. They pointed to someone else, a convicted felon named Alan Norwood. Norwood's DNA matched both the bandana and another crime scene, the murder of another woman in Austin, committed 2 years after Michael had been imprisoned. The real killer had been free. Free to take another life while Michael sat behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. For 25 years, the truth sat inside a freezer, waiting for someone to finally listen. In October 2011, Michael Morton walked out of prison, a free man. His son Eric, now a grown adult, met him outside those gates. Their reunion was quiet, cautious, full of tears that said everything words couldn't. Michael had entered prison at 32. He walked out at 57. A lifetime lost to a lie. The courtroom that had once condemned him now echoed with apologies. But there are some things that no apology can fix. Michael forgave the man who prosecuted him, Ken Anderson, the former district attorney, but forgiveness didn't erase accountability. In 2013, Anderson was found guilty of criminal contempt of court for withholding evidence that could have cleared Michael decades earlier. He became one of the few prosecutors in U.S. history to serve jail time for misconduct. It wasn't justice, not fully, but it was a start. Michael's story wasn't an isolated failure. It was a mirror reflecting a justice system where bias, pressure, and pride often outweigh truth. He wasn't the only one. Since DNA testing began, more than 375 people in the United States have been exonerated by post-conviction DNA evidence. Nearly 70% of them were black or people of color. The data doesn't lie. But it took science, not the system, to prove it. Michael Morton rebuilt his life. He became an advocate for criminal justice reform, pushing for the Michael Morton Act in Texas, a law requiring prosecutors to share all evidence with defense attorneys. His fight turned pain into progress. But every reform is written in the blood of those who suffered before it. Science gave him justice too late. But his story ensures that maybe for the next person, it won't come too late at all. But Michael's freedom came with one haunting question. How many more are still waiting? Innocent, forgotten, locked away with the truth sealed in a box? Every courtroom has echoes. Voices that never left. Stories that were silenced before the gavel fell. For Michael Morton, freedom wasn't the end. It was the beginning of another kind of trial. One that didn't question his guilt, but the guilt of the system itself. When Michael stepped out of the Michael unit in October 2011, the world had changed. Cell phones, the internet, faces that had aged, everything was new. But he carried the same memory, a single morning in 1986 that had stolen everything. He had missed birthdays, graduations, an entire life with his son. Now he had to learn how to live again. Imagine walking out into a world that moved on without you, and realizing the system that caged you will never say your name with pride. But Michael didn't choose bitterness. He chose purpose. Michael moved into a small home in Texas. He started working quietly, rebuilding his relationship with his son, Eric. They went fishing together, something they never got to do before the arrest. Slowly they began to talk about the past. The pain didn't vanish, but understanding grew. And as Michael rebuilt his life, he realized something chilling. His case was far from unique. Hundreds of people had been exonerated through DNA evidence since the 1990s. Many more were still fighting for that chance. So Michael began to speak, not just for himself, but for all the others still trapped inside the same silence. In 2013, Texas convened a special court of inquiry, not to retry Michael Morton, but to investigate the man who helped convict him. Ken Anderson, the former prosecutor who had become a judge. Evidence showed Anderson had withheld a key police report, one describing that Michael's 3-year-old son had said, "A monster hurt his mother, not daddy." Anderson had also hidden the neighbor's letter reporting a suspicious man behind the Morton home. That suppression of evidence violated the most basic rule of justice, fairness. In a rare act of accountability, Anderson was convicted of criminal contempt of court. He served 5 days in jail, surrendered his law license, and resigned from the bench. 5 days for 25 years of another man's life. That's the cost the system put on wrongful conviction. 5 days. But Michael wasn't finished. He took his story to lawmakers, to universities, to television screens across America. He fought for a simple but powerful law, the Michael Morton Act, passed in 2013. The law requires prosecutors in Texas to share all police reports, witness statements, and evidence with the defense. No more secrets, no more hidden files in locked drawers. It became one of the most sweeping discovery reforms in U.S. history. Justice doesn't begin in the courtroom. It begins with transparency. And for the first time in decades, Texas began to change. Even as technology redeems the innocent, it also exposes the system's deepest flaw, the pace of truth. Forensic science can uncover guilt or innocence in hours, but bureaucracy can take decades to listen. Since the rise of DNA testing, more than 3,400 people in the U.S. have been exonerated, some after serving 40 years or more. In 69% of those cases, the real perpetrator went on to commit more crimes. Every wrongful conviction is a double tragedy: an innocent person punished, and a guilty one set free. The freezer that held Michael's DNA evidence didn't just store science. It stored silence, Silence bought with pride, negligence, and misplaced trust in human certainty. Michael's story became a symbol, not just of science's power, but of human resilience. He began mentoring other exonerees, speaking at innocence conferences, and writing about forgiveness. He said, "The only thing worse than being wrongfully convicted is losing yourself inside it." He didn't lose himself. He found purpose inside pain. But not everyone gets that chance. How many more Michael Mortons are still waiting? How many bandanas, reports, or lab slides sit forgotten in dark evidence rooms across America, waiting for someone to listen? The truth is, DNA doesn't lie, but it also doesn't speak on its own. It needs someone to open the box, to question the record, to demand justice. Since 1989, DNA testing has rewritten history, case by case. Each time, it exposes not just one wrongful conviction but an entire pattern. Coerced confessions, unreliable eyewitnesses, and systemic bias against black and brown defendants. Science became the voice the system tried to silence. Michael Morton is a free man. He remarried. He travels. He smiles more now. But the truth never really leaves. It lingers in the spaces between who he was and who he became. He said once, "If telling my story keeps one innocent man from being caged, it's worth every scar." For 25 years, the truth sat in a freezer, waiting. When it finally spoke, it shattered a lie, freed a man, and forced justice to look in the mirror. Science gave him justice, too late. But DNA is only one piece of the puzzle. What happens when the science itself is corrupted, and the evidence is manufactured instead of discovered?